So this is a question I get asked a lot, and rather than explain it, here's an awesome video that I am re-uploading that explains it with, you'll see, it's awesome.
My name is Dr. Michael Greger, founder of the nonprofit website nutritionfacts.org. Every year I read through every issue of every English language nutrition journal in the world. What's the number one cause of death? Number two cause of death? Go down the list. These are largely diet-related diseases. The foundation of these theories tend to be that, carbs are bad because they increase insulin production. And insulin, having high levels of insulin associated with cancer, associated with lots of bad things. But meat is insulinogenic. There's a paper by Holt and colleagues, 1997, American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, called, in fact you can look it up, it's probably free by now, Insulin Index of Foods. It went through about 50 different foods, and eating beef causes a greater spike in insulin than white potatoes and white pasta and and white rice. More insulin, and if that's the villain, right? Then you'd stay away from the meat. What causes insulin resistance? It's intramyocellular lipid. It's fat that's inside the muscle fibers that interferes with insulin signaling such that your body has to keep pumping insulin to try to force it into your muscles, which use about 85% of your blood sugar. Your blood sugars rise because they can't enter into the cells, and not just any fat, but particularly saturated fat is toxic. So it's called lipotoxicity. And that's the term that's used in the literature to describe the effect that saturated fats have on the insulin, on producing insulin resistance. Back in 1927, they took these medical students, put them on a high-fat diet, and within days, their insulin sensitivity dropped. They had twice the blood sugar spike to the same meal. Your fat cells actually fill up with fat. They swell. You don't get more fat cells. They just get bigger. And when they stretch to a certain point, they start spilling fat over into your bloodstream, and that gets lodged in your muscles, and that can spill over, get lodged in your liver, and cause insulin resistance in your liver, make things worse, and then can actually lodge in the pancreas, in the insulin-producing cells of your pancreas, and then you can actually get that same lipotoxic, that fat toxicity in your pancreas that reduces, eventually, reduces the amount of insulin you can produce, and then you're in, florid type 2 diabetes, which is the number one cause of blindness, number one cause of non-traumatic amputations, number one cause of kidney failure in this country. These are horrific complications. And what does modern medicine have to give them? Just trying to reduce the complication rate. Just not treating the underlying cause, and we can cure this disease even years into the process, which is really exciting. It's not like, we used to think, we just kind of kill off these betas of these insulin-producing pancreatic cells, but it's actually, maybe we're just kind of suppressing them. And we can actually kind of wake them back up if we actually eat a cleaner diet, reduce that fat. Diabetes is a disease of fat toxicity in our organs, in our muscles, in our liver, in our pancreas.
Our body needs sugar to function. It's the fuel that powers our movement. The problem is when the sugar can't get into the cell and therefore stays in the bloodstream. The way that sugar gets into the cell is through insulin. Insulin is the key that unlocks the door to the cell so that the sugar can get inside. Imagine you are going to the front door of your house with your house keys. However, you find that you can't unlock the door. There's nothing wrong with your keys, but you find that there's something jammed inside the lock. There's chewing gum in the lock. When a person has diabetes, the person's insulin isn't working. The glucose can't get into the cell. But why is this? It's because the person's cell is clogged with fat, in the same way that the lock is jammed with chewing gum.
You're a type 1 diabetic, is that correct?
I am.
And you're a promoter of the fruit lifestyle, 80-10-10, vegan, high carb, low fat?
Absolutely.
And as a type 1 diabetic, you had type 1 diabetes before you got in the lifestyle? Or?
That's right. It actually sort of helped me find the lifestyle.
For sure. So what would be your tips for diabetics?
You really have to be disciplined about your fat intake and really be aware of your fat intake. So using something like Chronometer to figure out exactly what percent of calories are coming from fat. And if you're type 1 diabetic, it's the number one mistake. If you're type 1 diabetic and you start eating a lot of fruit, And if you don't take insulin at least 15 minutes before you start consuming the fruit, you're going to get a high blood sugar and be like, what the heck's going on, and blame the fruit. It's not that. It's that the fruit raises the blood sugar so much quicker than your past diet. So you really have to make sure you have a window before you take the insulin, you know, and then when you eat. That's like the most important thing. I get so many people saying, "Oh, I'm doing this fruit thing, and my blood sugar was like 400," and that's the reason. My fat content is really consistent, which makes it so it's easy to figure out how much insulin to take, and just don't have to worry about it.
So you're like just sugar, sugar, sugar.
Pretty much.
Nice, nice. So type 2 diabetes, you can reverse that, yeah?
Oh, for sure. Check out the movie Forks Over Knives.
Definitely.